The Choreum is a practice which exposes the spatial qualities of ethnographic artefacts created by and enacted through their value system. Liberated from the museum, these cultural, social, economic, and spiritual values start from the object outwards, occupying the space of the individual, of the collective, to the town and city scale and beyond, connecting diasporic communities. In the context of ongoing discussions surrounding decolonization and repatriation, the Quarian is here to reinstate the power of the artifact, rewilding it to a now foreign context by working on behalf of present-day source communities to produce new spatial configurations. These disrupt our current conservatism towards the preservation of the physical artifact, our desires to own the authentic, exotic original, and which embraces the variability of present-day source communities. This starts by working on behalf of those source communities and returning the artifact's name. In 3 Mills Studio, a one-to-one mock-up of the British Museum Sainsbury's Gallery has been constructed. The walls, display cases, benches and lights are taped out on the floor in their respective colours. Beside these, a pop-up rehearsal studio, a motion capture stage, and the Choreum frame provide a custom-built space facilitating rehearsals, community meetings, the displaying of models and documents. Rehearsals will establish the movements that re-empower the artifact, the procession removing the endemi from its vitrine along with its reductive caption and its replinthing with its associated uniform and long-form description, where it will remain for 3 years. In addition, highly detailed mock-ups of display cases are covered in capulana fabric, with the proxy Benin bronzes protected by museum barriers. To the side of this space, platform stage modules are in production, using rammed earth and covered in soil imported over 7,000 miles from the Mweda Plateau, southern Tanzania. Atop an assembled stage, at the center of this activity, the Mapiko dancer smashes a copy of the Endymion rehearsal, one of several 3D printed from scans that has undergone this process. The Choreum has worked with this source community over 12 weeks, at the end of which the choreography and staging will be mapped onto the museum gallery space. The original Endemi will be smashed in front of a crowd of visitors, hitting them with the debris of the Mapiko costume. As the Makonde community gather hurriedly around the performer and the identity of the dancer is concealed, the 3-year life cycle of the Mapiko mask will be complete, the artifact suitably honoured, its power and spatial implications partially restored in the culmination of these rehearsals and in the memories of its witnesses. The documentation of this will be dispersed among museums in possession of Endemi across the world, resulting in the overlapping of 3-year initiation cycles and the smashing of Endemi masks according to these newly established protocols. Already, at the edge of this space, the Brooklyn Museum Gallery is beginning to be taped out. In mediating the museum's interactions, gathering the necessary expertise, choreographing protocols, and providing instructions, the Choreum will lay waste to curatorial practices which have inhibited, claimed, and homogenized the cultural products of Africa. Ubuntu is a war club, 4 of which formed a part of the Tridescent collection at the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford. Originating from the Carib or Kalinago community of the Greater and Lesser Antilles, its source is difficult to define with little research available, resulting in an incomplete understanding of its value system. But this offers the current source communities, groups practicing forms of stick fighting, a blank slate. In the rehearsal studio, stick fighting experts and members of the Caribbean diaspora were brought together to look at ways that the Butu may be incorporated into a new pan-Caribbean sport. The Ashmolean Museum offered research connecting the source community with museums in Munich and Florence, while the Choreum provided costume designers, architects, graphic designers and choreographers as tools for the source community's cause, ensuring that all output falls under their explicit ownership to be adapted, altered and built upon by them. With these expertise to hand, the source communities created uniforms, branding and stage designs in keeping with current craft and construction processes. The uniforms and sheaths took inspiration from costumes created for Carnival in Trinidad and Tobago, alongside the wear of Kalinago communities. The crests drew inspiration from materials and artefacts that continue to be used today, the cassava squeezer and the ruku plant, as well as important historical artefacts, pottery fragments and the decorative garters. Taped out on the rehearsal stage is the 9x9 meter stick fighting ring in green and yellow, the Gael or calendar ring where stick fighting dances emerged from in red, and the outermost ring giving the 11x11 meter dimensions for the Choreum's proposal in black. As in all of our workshops, a motion capture stage was vital for formalizing the stances, generating new protocols for the usage of the butu. Further beyond this, the Choreum stage design can be seen in construction with pieces easily attached to the existing stick fighting stage, with lengths of woven fabric which may change colour, print or pattern, connecting the platform to the base and encouraging wider participation. The butu, formerly without community, is returned to use, preserved through new spatial configurations, new materiality, destruction, and most importantly, continued usage. In mediating the museum's interactions, gathering the necessary expertise, choreographing protocols, providing instructions, and ensuring ownership of output, the Quarian will facilitate Caribbean voices superseding fallacious colonial narratives. A few miles away in Clandon Park, Guildford, a truck is being loaded with the many Maori carvings which make Hinamihi, a meeting house constructed from carvings imbued with ancestral spirit. Moments ago, she sat in Lord Onslow's garden, where she had been since being sold to his great-great-grandfather for £50 in the late 19th century. Here, where the source community is active and has protocols written into New Zealand's laws regarding the treatment of their tonga, sacred objects, the Choreum has been tasked with both ensuring that the protocols surrounding the care of Hinamihi are upheld and that she travels safely. Initial rehearsals for this utilised a sacrificial version of one of her carvings, and in moving it we could see when and where Maori protocols would come into play and what additional equipment, people and protocols would be needed. As a result of this exploration, plastizote casings were CNC'd in our workshop space as the carvings will be placed in the dining room of a container ship, with supports designed by the Quarian, positioning them as a proxy meeting house for the 54-day journey from the UK to New Zealand. As such, a second step of spiking or the taping out of the container ship one-to-one was necessary, allowing us to configure Hinamihi in a way that would maintain her relationship and meaning in accordance with her original plan and Maori protocols. In the workshop, we utilised the studio's hydraulic platform to simulate the movement of the ship, with sacrificial copies of all carvings used to ensure that our designs function as desired. We could then denote how many people would be needed to move each carving, with at least one Maori representative present at all times, and with any non-Maori members wearing gloves. Shown in this matrix instruction is the order of placement and the number of Maori, conservators and helpers needed, to be accompanied by a visual instruction booklet of handling procedures highlighting the importance of non-Maori maintaining protocols. The secondary function of this design recognised that no plan was in place for the life of Hinamihi once she reached Tauranga, with Maori diaspora both in New Zealand and elsewhere expressing the need for places to meet. The scaffold system will be recycled alongside a series of large concertina panels, allowing for a temporary extending meeting house which can be easily adapted to the size of the diaspora. This step further empowers her, placing her in relation to the constellation of buildings that form a marae, a complex of carved buildings and grounds that belongs to a particular iwi, tribe, hapu, subtribe or whenua family. These include small pavilions for cooking and eating, called wharakai, a changing room and store utilising the same panelling. In the creation of this complex, Hinamihi will be preserved through the continuation of protocols surrounding its usage, transferring over time and space from one whenua or family to another. In mediating the conservators' interactions, upholding existing protocols, gathering the necessary expertise, choreographing protocols and providing instructions, the Choreum will normalise the observance of non-Maori protocol. The tables resulting from our workshops visualise how we change the current museological choreographies that surround cultural objects, confronting the destructive architecture of handling, observing and labelling. By removing them, accumulating the necessary expertise and providing these spaces, communities are free to explore their existing protocols or to invent new ones, ensuring that the museum is just a momentary pause in the extended life of cultural objects. The Choreum is not following the trend of decolonising institutions, nor the current repatriation process where artefacts often end up in museums in their source countries. Instead, we look to architecture and performance as tools for reclamation and the creation of new cultural spaces and systems, superseding current frameworks from the scale of the individual to the networked collective. Whether the original is maintained is the source's decision, with our expertise and energy focused on interpreting the social, economic, cultural, and spiritual values of the artifact today. Where Indigenous voice has been largely absent, the architect must perform an altruistic role, becoming part of a larger support system, letting go of dated art historical or architectural references to invest wholeheartedly in the desires of the source community. In opposition to a dreary public consultation, the Quarian ensures that the source community's values take pride of place, their knowledge and connection to their artefacts transcending the tangible material world that our profession limits us to. This is not a 12-month student project, it is an ongoing practice, and I would like to invite you all, architects, curators, designers and more, to join this cause, to work with your communities, or to extend your reach further, proposing novel protocols that bring these important cultural objects back into circulation.